This episode of the Nerdist Podcast is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to publish a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your new account, go to Squarespace.com and use the code NERDIST. And now, on with the program.
Now entering Nerdist.com.
No, just one.
Are you going to do ads? Seems like your show would work well for it.
Audible approached me. I want to see how it goes for a little bit. I would love to not have to do it, if I can. But it's really tempting.
We're experimenting.
It pays for your costs and stuff like that. It's like whoa.
Sorry.
That was good.
Thank you. I had to sneeze.
But we'll see. I mean, so far I'm not at the point where it's an economic hardship. You know what I mean? I've not used up all my space, so we'll see.
Yeah, we're on it. It took us about 25 episodes before we were like, it'd be nice to get some, because we do work on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Paul F. Tompkins is in my house. Oh, no. Literally. He literally is.
Literally
in my house.
In your house.
In my house. Paul F. Tompkins, thank you for coming to my house and being on the Nerds Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I've been so excited. I've been wanting you to come on for so long, and I'm glad that you were in New York for a while, and then you moved back.
That's true.
And then...
now, you tried wishing on a star that I would be on the show.
I did wish on a star.
It's an ineffective booking policy.
God damn it, are you serious?
I found out the hard way.
No, I'm not going to get Ian Holm on the show. 4 people are going to know who Ian Holm is.
One of them is Ian Holm.
I was very excited to hear myself on the Nerdist Podcast. That's my Ian Holm I'm only one of 2 Ian Holm impersonators in the Northern Hemisphere. Ian Holm is the other one. He does a
good rendition of himself.
Oh, Ben Acker. We could do the Thrilling Adventure Hour last night.
As of this recording, that was just last night.
Yes, but now, by the time this goes up in a week or whatever, it'll be...
Happy anniversary!
Back in 2010. But we did Thrilling Adventure Hour, which is an amazing live radio performance.
Yes.
And it's incredible. And you're a regular on the show, as is Autumn Reeser, who is fantastic.
She's terrific.
As is Paget Brewster and a bunch of incredible actors. And Acker and Blacker, the writing team of Acker and Blacker.
The improbably named Ben Acker and Ben Blacker.
Yeah, they both named Ben and their names rhyme. Ben Acker was telling me last night a Frank Nelson story that many years ago, which he said Sergio Aragonés had told. So it gets weird.
I'm trying to remember who Frank Nelson is. He was like, that guy. Okay, yes. Yes.
He hated Mr. Flintstone. No, Mr. Flintstone. Right. Oh, Mrs. Ricardo. There was some show years ago, like decades ago, and they wanted to. They put out a casting thing for a Frank Nelson sound-alike, and I think Sergio Aragonés was like, well, why don't you just get Frank Nelson? And so they made Frank Nelson audition.
Wow.
So Frank Nelson goes into a room and he's with all these Frank Nelson sound-alikes. And at the last minute, they changed direction. So they had to come out and say, Mr. Nelson. And he did the, yes! And the entire room full of impersonators just stood up and applauded.
And then when they were leaving, they were like, after you.
No, after you. Oh, okay. So that was a wonderful entertainment business story that I heard last night.
That I auditioned for a commercial recently, and I had sworn after the last commercial audition I had, I said, I'm never doing this again.
They're the worst.
Commercial auditions, if people don't know, because it's advertising. There's no pretense that there's any art to acting whatsoever. That is completely dropped. And the way you're treated is like, everybody who's going to be the guy behind the counter, go stand over there.
Excuse me, can I? No questions.
Be quiet. Hold on a second. I'm giving orders here.
You're trash.
The people that walk up to the counter, you stand over there. So you really are treated like garbage.
And you're in this like holding pen.
Yes.
And the worst seats ever.
They're like benches.
Yeah.
And then
it's like Ellis Island. Island. It's terrible.
It's like an Ellis Island for sadness.
They throw lye on you. Yes, they give you a lye bath.
So Ellis Island.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not going to start a new life after commercial Ellis Island.
You're possibly end your life. After commercial audition.
You leave with a less ethnic last name.
That's right. right at the feet of Lady Unliberty. There's like a whole. There's one section of kids are auditioning for some, so fucking kids are running around everywhere.
Race boards.
People are reading their sides out loud.
There's like 5 guys in lab coats because they're bringing their own lab coats to the doctor audition.
Here was I never knew if I should dress. Am I always a cowboy? Should I put a hat on? And then I hate that moment.
You mustn't.
Yeah.
The last
It feels bad.
The last commercial audition I ever had was, and then I stopped going on them. But I went into the room, and a lot of time they'll give you crazy direction that you can't possibly implement.
Yeah.
So they'll go. This was what the guy said. All right, so you're sitting in your room, you're hanging out, you got a poster of a superhero on the wall. Then he comes out of the poster and then just walks across the room, and then you just react to that. Just fucking go. Like I would shit the stomach lining out of my body because that could not happen.
Yeah. You would start, like, tears of fright would stream down your face.
And after-
what is happening to the world?
Yeah, I know. What? Dude, that can happen? That's a thing now?
But all they really want in the end is just you going, oh. That's all they're going to use, the guy that does
Gogurt!
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
So what happened?
Oh, I did it, and then I wanted to shower afterwards, but I'm sure there was some eager young, new Hollywood transplant who was just all eager to. No, it's all about auditioning, man, and being my super
Put
personality.
yourself out there. Everyone's got to see you.
Do you still? So you don't still commercial audition anymore?
No, I did one recently because the casting director had asked for me, and the one commercial I ever did, it was the same casting agency, and the commercial never aired. So I was like, this guy's nice enough, and he's a friend of a director friend of mine whom I worked with. So I said, okay, I'll go in, and it was. It's like one of those things where they're giving me so much direction. I've never been given this much direction for anything that I actually had the job for, And it was like all these different ways. And then I realized, they don't know what they want. And so they're using me to try out a bunch of different stuff before they give somebody else the job. But I am helping them figure out the direction of the character. And guess what? You don't get paid for that. No. That's work. Like, I'm working now for these people.
And also
helping
them, almost kind of helping them to write their thing.
Yes. Yeah. So they might take things from me.
If you improvise in auditions, a lot of times they'll just fucking take it.
Yeah, but that's not just like commercial auditions. That's like other. I've seen that happen where it's like, hey, we're doing this kind of improv show idea. Come in with character ideas and situations.
Wait, so by improv show, you mean you haven't written it yet, and you're just going to take all the improvised scenes from actors who come in? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. So I always kind of opt out of those because it's like it feels weird. Like
you're
going to do this work, you're going to write some material, and then you're going to just give it to them.
Yeah,
for no reason at all.
Yeah.
And no appreciation.
No appreciation.
They don't care.
Funny, thanks.
All right, get out. Did you write that down? Paul Tompkins. I really. Boy, I wish we had like 3 hours to talk because there's so much I want to talk to you about.
We do.
No, well, we don't. I mean, we can't.
I can't be the first 3-parter. You don't have to be in a row. You can parse them out over the course of the rest of the year.
September is Paul F. Tomptember. So it's just like every week is a different chapter 4. Early life. So you are from Philadelphia?
Indeed.
I'm performing at Helium in a couple of weeks.
It's a great club.
That's what I hear.
Everybody's really nice.
I saw you there once. You got me and my
you
girlfriend and
really?
her family there.
At Helium in Philadelphia?
Yeah, it was like
I kind of remember that. What were you doing there?
I was visiting my girlfriend's family, and and then you got us all in. I was just like randomly looking through the paper and saw you were performing. And I texted you. We barely knew each other, but I was like, "Hey, I'm with my girlfriend and her 4 family members. Do you think we could get into your show?" He goes, "Yeah, come on down."
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. It's one of those things where I still have a lot of family and friends in Philadelphia, but I think I was doing like 4 nights or something like that. Yeah. So it was. There's a lot of people to get in there, so it was not exactly like all my comps are spoken for. It's like no, there's plenty. I still need people to come see the show.
Now, see, for you to say a comedy club is good, it must be an actual good comedy club.
No, it was that it's a relatively new club. When I played it, I think it had only been open a year or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's really nicely set up. The staff is great. It's in a nice part of town. And where they put you up is close to a lot of things. So
The Rocky statue?
It's really nice. It's not close to the Rocky statue. I'm sorry.
God damn
That
it.
is your number one Philadelphia
the point?
destination.
What's cool
It's
about
a small enough town. You can get there in a few minutes.
What was cool about seeing you there, though, was like because I had seen you so much at the M Bar and more of the alternative rooms in LA, and
Yeah.
to see you like do a long set in a like.
Oh,
comedy
that's true.
club.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was like there was really no difference.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of did.
That is the disadvantage to one of the many disadvantages to just doing comedy in LA is that you never get to see your friends or people that you like do long sets. You only
That's
see
true.
you only see 10 or 12-minute sets.
That is true.
And like getting to see Bamford at the Improv that night do like 45 minutes, like, oh, it's
Yeah.
so wonderful to actually get a sense of what her long form
Yeah,
set
it's like
is.
since you just get a better sense of who they are and like their comedy, just it fits better in longer form. You
Yeah.
know? It's like, unless it's a guy just doing like quick jokes, jokey jokes. It's like like you need a longer set for most comics out here. So
Yeah.
the better ones.
I don't know how the 2-line joke comics survive in an hour-long set. I mean, I know they do. I just don't like that because I can't write those kinds of jokes, so I don't really understand.
That's so much stuff that you have to write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To fill up 60 minutes to write of one-liners. That's a lot of material.
And they're all like hit or miss, like I feel like they're hit, like a 2-line joke is hit or miss,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
So for all the ones that you have to write to put together an hour, there's probably 8 times more
But
that
for-
you've
for
written.
the type of people that do one-liners, though, it's like they usually have the personality type where even if it doesn't hit, they still have that kind of cocky, like it doesn't matter because there's another one on the way. Kind
I
of.
guess it's easier if you realize you'll never throw any material out. No, I don't care. I didn't get a laugh. It stays in. I need to fill time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a bad joke. You gonna get rid of it? No, I'm just gonna put it between 2 good jokes.
Yeah, I'll bury it in the middle.
You gonna do any crowd work? Heavens no. Heavens no.
Show my personality.
No, it's basically 200 or 300 jokes per minute.
My friend said like late '90s he opened up for Emo Phillips in Texas, and he said Emo had like a huge water jug with his like set, like he needed a big thing to put his set list on the top of it. And so like to like the audience, it was funny that he had this really big thing of water to drink from, but like as he was doing it, he would like check out his set. And but he needed something that big because he like didn't want to like have.
Would he take a sip from this gigantic jug after every joke?
No, I think it was just more of like just to check in and see where he's at in the set. But that would be
Surely, there was some other way of placing a set list.
Nope, just a jug. Just a jug.
Look, you guys, I've crunched the numbers. The only way I can get through this, I have to tape a piece of paper
Got a code,
to a
maybe?
water jug.
Yeah.
So you can't bring that through security to get on the plane. No, you don't understand. This contains my set list.
Yeah.
That's why Emo has that one really muscular arm.
like the character from Lady in the Water. Oh God, why would I reference that movie?
I don't know.
I take it back. I take it back. I regret it. I regret it.
Wait, a character in that movie has one big arm?
Yeah, Freddie. He's the guy from He's one of the guys from 6 Feet Under. And
Freddie the big arm guy.
and in Lady in the Water, he's just worked out one arm, and so he just has this massive arm.
Does that come in handy at some point?
Not really.
Does the scrawny arm come in handy at some point?
No, much like many of the plot
twist.
points don't come in handy
What an
at
M. Night
all.
Shyamalan twist. It was the skinny arm. That
All of our
saved
arms
the
are
day.
too big to fit through that opening.
Here's what a bummer that movie was. All of the exposition, the only way that they could get it across was an old Asian lady who was just remembering parts of the fable, and she would forget and then remember, and that's how it would drive the story. So, like, some stuff would happen, and then this girl would come out and go, "My grandmother just remembered another part of the story."
Wow.
So it turns out, and then like 2-page monologue of exposition.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes me want to see this movie,
You know,
which I have avoided.
Yeah.
yeah, I think you've made the right choice up to now. We were talking about sponsorships earlier on, Paul,
Yes.
and I would like to now demonstrate.
That was not fair. They didn't know that we talked about that.
Now
If
they
I'm not
do.
going to keep that in,
Alright,
I
I'm
might
just
keep
saying.
that in.
I'm just.
podcast-
No, that was before we started recording.
This podcast is raw, Matthew.
You think because you got eye
Fair enough.
surgery, you can just
Fair enough.
be all cool or
I
whatever?
didn't. I just left them in the car.
What?
So I'm just like,
We were steps away from the car. It's like I forgot my glasses in the car. I was like, you could just
lazy.
I'm not
just
going
took
back.
over.
I'm not going back there.
Nah.
back there where you can see.
Let's see. Walk or see? This is a new sponsor on the podcast.
Is this the first time?
This is the first time they're going to be on here.
History.
I should put in some music. No, something a little more upbeat. All right. Jonah, did you know that? See, I can't even do it that way. This is just like the old radio show days, where you would literally only have 40 seconds, so you couldn't justify it too much.
I'm sorry, you're saying something to me?
Yeah, I was saying that Squarespace.com is the fast and easy way to create and manage a high-quality website or blog.
What's that website name again?
Squarespace.com. 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 No, actually, Squarespace is really cool. I know that Kevin Pereira had originally turned me on to Squarespace. And what's cool about it is that you don't have to really know how to program a blog, or you can be a beginner, or it's a very simple platform. I don't think you really need to know any HTML.
Also, if you have an
hypertext markup language.
If you have an existing blog, you can put all of it into there and it will format.
You could. You get a photo gallery, you get form builders, you get Google Maps, permission access, handling. There are hundreds of design templates to choose from. God damn it!
Is there a weather widget? Also, what is that?
In case you don't have a window, I need a weather widget. I need a. You want to look outside? No. Your glasses are in the car. I don't care. Anyway, you can use Squarespace for all of your website needs. You can build it, host it, and manage it. For a free trial, you can go to squarespace.com. There is no credit card needed, and you just have to try it out to build your website. And then if you decide to purchase it, you get 10% off if you enter the coupon code NERDIST.
10% is just 90% away from 100.
That's right. You know percentages.
So it's practically 100% off.
It's almost 100% off.
Yeah.
I don't see why you wouldn't do it.
I mean, if you want to, if you approach it from that angle, it is almost.
I do, and I have.
100% off. I think that was a pretty average take on that, and I'm
Smooth
sure
as
that
silk.
they will not be returning as a sponsor. It's fine. Paul, forget about them because you are the main focus of this podcast, and I want to talk about you're an innovator in the field of breaking free from comedy clubs and performing in independent venues on your own. And I would love for you to describe what happened when you came up with the Facebook 300.
Sure. It was completely an accident, and it was born out of sarcasm. Actually, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was recording an hour-long special for Comedy Central, and I was going to do it at this little place called the Laughing Skull Lounge.
Great club. I'll be there in a couple of months.
I think it seats 80 people.
Yep. And you do 2 shows a night, and then it's
for
like
4
about
nights.
the size of a regular club.
Yeah, and because the material I was doing was much more personal and intimate, I thought, okay, this would be a great thing to do. And also because, most of the comedy specials you see, somebody does an hour-long special, it's in like a great big theater, where there's a lot of applause breaks and whooping and stuff like that. And I thought, I can't. This stuff is too, like, I talk about my mom dying. You know what I mean? So
right.
I don't necessarily.
It's not maybe whoop worthy.
Yes, exactly. It shouldn't be anyway.
No.
I think it would have hurt my feelings that people would. Woo! So
I identify with that premise.
My mom died too. So I went to this place, and it was a big thing to work out logistically how it was going to work, and so finally we figured it all out. Like, okay, so then I get to Atlanta, gonna start doing shows, and I find out that the shows are not sold out yet. And I started to panic. I need to have an audience for this show. I kind of do.
So I don't understand. So you're saying if you're going to shoot an hour-long comedy special, you want people in the room to act?
My personal preference is to have an audience there.
Okay,
I know
right.
people, to each his own.
It's a good way to go.
I'm not trying to tell people how to do comedy.
No.
So I took to the internet and on Twitter, I was telling people, look, I need Atlanta to come out to these shows, please. I need pretty much 300 people over the course of 4 nights to come see me do stand-up at this place. And so I was tweeting that, and people were retweeting it for me, and it was this big flurry of activity on Twitter. And then in the midst of all that, this guy that I'd never met before, Bob Kerr, comedian from Toronto, Canada, said, hey, why don't you come to Toronto? And when you are trying to get people to go to one place, there's nothing more frustrating than somebody, because how it comes across is, forget that place. Just come where I am.
Pack your bags, get your cameras, get on a plane, get your passport.
So I wrote to him and said, I don't think I even knew that he was a comedian at that point. It was just this guy telling me, why don't you come to Toronto?
In a not funny way.
In a not funny way.
Okay.
And so I wrote back to him through gritted typing fingers. Said, I tell you what, you get 300 people to say they will see me in Toronto, and then I'll go book a show in Toronto. So
Send.
I sent it, and then he wrote back to me. I want to say within a matter of hours, with a link, and it took me to this Facebook group that said, I want to see Paul F. Tompkins in Toronto. And he laid it out, and he said, comedian Paul F. Tompkins has pledged that if we get 300 people to say they are committed to seeing him do a show here, he will book a show here. And don't join this group if you just want to join a group. Don't join because you think you're helping me out. It's like you have to be serious that if at all possible, you will see a show if he puts on a show here. And so within a few weeks, he got to 300 people. And I said, all right.
Better hold up your end of the
book a
bargain.
show. Absolutely. Let's see what happens. So I booked a show at the Rivoli Theatre in Toronto, famous in the world of comedy for where the Kids in the Hall got their start. Mm-hmm. And they have like a great comedy scene in Toronto. And they do comedy shows at the Rivoli all the time. And so I went up there on a Sunday. I did. It's a smaller place. I did 2 shows in one night, and it was fantastic. They were like 2 of the best shows I'd ever done, and I began to think, okay, well maybe this is a workable thing. Maybe this is the way to do it. If I can get the audience in place first, and then do the show, maybe that's the way I can book things from now on. And so after that, I can't remember if I blogged about that and said, look, I would love to try this, or I think it was after the Toronto one, there was a little write-up in the Toronto paper, and Bob tweeted about it, and I retweeted about it, and then other groups started to spring up. And so I wrote on my website, hey, I think there might be something to this, and here's how it works. If you want to start a group, let me know. I will spread the word as much as I can, and when you get to 300, I will book a show. And since then, I've done just about a dozen of these, I think, and 99% of them have been absolutely fantastic. There have been a couple underattended
That's
shows.
1% away from 100%.
Exactly, Jonah. Exactly.
That's how his brain works.
Yes.
You're talking his language.
Yes. So it's been great, and now I'm coming up on the in October. It'll be the 1 year anniversary of this thing starting, and I'm going back to the Rivoli and doing a show, and I'm really excited about that. And I feel like that'll be the real test of how this can work. If I have established these groups, which fans start, so it's always if people want to see me, rather than me hoping to round people up. It's like, no, definitely this is a place we would like you to come. There's enough people here who want to see what you do. Perform there once, the group stays, and then it becomes a means of communication, like a mini fan club, a localized thing of, you're on Facebook already. You're on Twitter already, so I can reach you through that, and say, I'm coming back to that place that I played last time you saw me. So we'll see. So the Rivoli will be the first test of that. And then to go back to a lot of these venues, for the most part, I think it's all, I would happily go back to all the same venues that I've already played. And keep refining this process, but so far so good.
It's such a logical... when I saw that you were first doing that, I was like, God damn it, that makes so much sense. Because, it's rare that... I don't usually think of comedy in the simplest terms of, well, if people come see you, then you can do a show. You just kind of book shows, and you show up, and you hope that the club got the word out. And, and I've started experimenting with like promotional street teams, because there's just never really enough advertising budget.
Yeah.
And... it's also been
and
really
the
interesting.
advertising the club does might have nothing to do with you or your sensibility.
Well, that's very true, because you don't. What most non-comics don't understand is that you can go to these clubs and they paper the room with like free ticket night. So like a redneck could show up and be like, "Hey, this isn't fucking funny."
Yeah.
And they want to see Jeff Dunham.
Yeah.
And you're not Jeff Dunham.
And then there's that weird anger that people get for some reason if they don't find something funny. And I think it's that I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I think it's that there's a certain amount of confidence that you have to get you on stage to say, I believe that what I am saying is funny to a large group of strangers. Right? So that's a certain amount of balls that you have to go up there and put that to the test, just to do that. It's not like you're swaggering on stage like, I've already got you people in the palm of my hand. It's like, it's the confidence to take that gamble, an educated gamble, like, I'm pretty sure this is going to go well. That's what you're doing. And so everybody thinks they're funny. So if they see a guy on stage that has the gall to get up there, the courage and the confidence to get up there, just to get up there in front of a room full of people, and they don't find it funny, I think that the psychology of it is like, I'm funnier than that guy, but I'm scared to do what he's doing. And so I'm going to yell from the darkness.
I also think the other part. Oh, and then a lot of times when you try to engage them, they shut down and they don't want to talk.
Yes, because they're cowards.
But I think the other part of it is, they are, in their minds, I think they are renting you.
Yes.
As, like the same way that you would hire a real estate agent or anyone.
Yeah. You work for me.
You're the expert and you work for me now.
Yeah.
And you're not giving me what, as a consumer, I feel I should be getting, so fuck you.
You're not doing what I consider comedy.
Right.
And I want to hear only what I consider comedy. And so that's what you're dealing with in comedy clubs a lot of times is a bunch of people that have paid no money to get in. They don't value the experience, and so they have no reason to invest themselves.
Right.
If somebody pays, and comedy clubs are expensive.
Incredibly expensive. I don't know how anyone affords it anymore.
Yeah. So if you've paid all that money and then you pay for the ticket and then you have to buy the minimum and stuff like that, drinks, food, whatever, I think you're more likely to say, all right, let's hear this guy out.
Right.
It might not be what I consider comedy off the bat, but I'm going to give this guy a chance and hear what he has to say because I came here to have a good time.
Right.
But somebody that just came there to get drunk because it was a free ticket, it's like, well, it's just another venue to drink, really. we might as well do it there than someplace else.
Fuck you, I don't have to shut up. I didn't pay anything for this.
So now the marketing that comedy clubs do, the advertising is not individualized. It is just it's comedy clubs. So just go on the radio. It's the top-rated radio station. So regardless of what they do, you just go there and you do comedy, and then people come to the comedy club.
Right.
And it's like, well, there's different types of comedians, though.
I'm not sure my demographic is urban youths, 15 to 24. I'm not 100% sure that they're going to get me.
Come see Earthquake this weekend. Next weekend, Paul F. Tompkins.
But it's more like, the thing I've come into, the thing that I've run into is just the sort of morning zoo model where it's like really crass stuff, and it's like I try never to sound judgmental or snobby about this stuff, but that's just not who I am at all.
Right.
Like the stuff that those guys are laughing about is not the stuff that I laugh about, and it's not part of my comedic vocabulary, so I can't just join in, So then I end up coming off just not that funny on the radio because these guys have gone down a direction. They've gone down a comedic road that is unfamiliar terrain for me, and I can't just all of a sudden. I don't have a whole other persona that I can pull out.
Well, it also misrepresents what you're going to do at your show too.
Exactly.
So you don't want people to be like,
hold on a second, this guy.
He did like 10 ovary jokes on the radio, and I didn't hear the word ovary once when I went to see him. This is fucking ridiculous.
I think what the Morning Zoo guys though, it's like these guys hang out with each other every weekday for years, and it's like just kind of jumping into a close knit group of friends, and they have all these inside jokes or sound effects as they probably would be, and then it's hard to kind of jump in and be, hey, me too, guys, play that fart duck noise again, Yeah,
but having done a morning radio show for a while in LA, I can tell you that what happens is you're so exhausted most of the time that you're, I don't want to say dead inside, but you just go into shortcut mode. And so all of your shortcuts are just blah, kind of like what you said. So part of it is they're probably not even listening to what you're saying.
No, you're killing time.
Yeah,
you're killing time.
You're killing time for ads.
Yes, and the relationship of the comedy club to the radio station is a flawed relationship. It's imbalanced because the comedy club is saying, well, we get free advertising on this radio station. We send the comedians there, and then the radio station mentions our comedy club a bunch of times. And in return, the radio station gets to fill time, which is their prime directive. It's like, look, we have to be here for 3 hours.
No choice.
We have to keep talking for 3 hours, right? So we need people to help us fill 3 hours of time. So the thing is, the radio station definitely gets what it needs. They have filled their time, right? The comedy club, maybe people care enough to go to see the comedy club. Maybe they don't, though. So it's not the greatest form of free advertising. You know, there's no guarantee that that's going to be effective.
Right.
And I would go out when I was doing comedy clubs. I like to sometimes go out and do a poll of the audience and ask them how many people are here tonight because they heard me on the radio. And nobody ever, not a single person in a single city, was there ever a response. And nobody ever came out because they heard me on the radio.
Really?
Not a single person.
So have you stopped doing the radio then?
Yes, that's another part of this, of the way of booking these shows, is that I don't. All the promotion is built in. It's built into the momentum of the group, and it's. I keep reminding people. I interact with the group online. It takes no time at all, and it's kind of fun, you know, to get people excited about these shows, and it's kind of a neat thing.
So everybody wins except morning radio.
Yeah,
Hey, finally.
They're still killing time. They're fine. Don't worry about morning radio. They're just not worried about you.
I feel like they're killing time in a retirement home. Like they're just ever closing they're just edging toward death. You know, like when those first cars start rolling out early next year that have like Pandora and you know, like it's gonna be a bummer. It's gonna be a real bummer for radio. But
sounds like flailing when you tune in the morning. Just
a little.
like that.
Hey guys, we're still here. We're still here, right? You guys, is anybody out there?
Who else is fat we can make fun of?
It's like, I feel like they're in a studio just trying to see, like, if, like, in a post-apocalyptic world, if anyone is still out there.
Exactly.
We have an encampment.
Yeah.
Please, bring supplies.
It's going to be like the recorded message in 28 days later.
Exactly. But I think I will say, and I will go on record as saying this, Paul. That I think you are definitely one of the best comedians working today, without a doubt.
Well, thank you very much.
And I think any good comedian that you would respect, that you would ask, would say the same thing.
Thank you.
I interviewed. I had Bill Maher on the podcast, and we were talking about when you were on Real Time, and he was like,
Did he remember who I was?
He loves you. He did. Not only did he remember, he was like, I love Paula Tompkins.
Oh, that's very
and
sweet.
we just decided that that we just wanted to make it more about other stuff that was going on in the show, and it wasn't anything against you about not being on the show anymore. He thought you were great, and he loved you.
Except I was not on the show anymore.
Except you were not on the show
After that
anymore. That's
decision.
difficult to argue that point.
Part of that decision was, let's not have Paul on the show anymore.
But I think it was, let's have more of this other stuff. And let's not have Paul specifically.
Right.
You just said those words again. Let's not have Paul.
It's just they had puppets, and they were like,
How do we achieve this more of the other stuff?
But I don't think it was anything personal along those lines, because everyone, like anyone you ask, they love Paula Tompkins, and you were the first comic to ever tell me, oh, you don't, because there was this sort of, I always call it like pre-Vatican II comedy, which is the idea of, you gotta go into any room and you gotta make those people laugh at any cost.
Right.
You work for them, And you were the first person to say to me, you don't need to perform for any audience. You should find people that want to be there, perform for your crowd, and if you're not having fun performing, don't perform for the people you're not having
That's
fun
the thing.
with.
It's like, when it comes to music, they're not telling people in bands to say, it's like, you got to play music that everybody will like. It's like, you play the music that you are good at playing, that you like playing.
When musicians go out on tour, they play to their fans.
Yes.
That's how they make money.
Exactly.
There is a period, though, any kind of artist that you are, any kind of performing artist that you are, you have to do bad gigs in order to get good at what you do, and that toughens you up. But the problem is, like a lot of our colleagues believe that you always have to do the clubs. You always have to do that. It keeps you honest and stuff like that. And I feel like I've been doing this for over 20 years. If I can't keep myself honest, if I can't tell the difference between when I'm just kind of coasting with people who are in the know and when I am really working as hard as I can to the best of my ability, then that going to that club is not going to help me. You know what I mean? There's a time of paying dues where absolutely you got to take your lumps, because that's how you get good. You develop a thick skin. You work harder and harder. But at a certain point, I want to get new fans, but I feel like the way I'm going to get new fans is not necessarily going into hostile environments and trying to win people over with what I do, like getting one person at a time. But
like the Islamabad Improv.
Exactly. but I've heard it's got some good stuff. I've heard good points about the Islamabad Improv, that they do the check drop at the end of the show rather than in the middle of the show. But I feel like I would rather do shows for people that know who I am, who might bring somebody and say, this guy's really funny.
Well, I think that there's no question that's going to happen.
That I'm getting the same amount of new fans that I would had I gone into the shitty club.
Right.
Probably. I'm willing to take that gamble.
You're probably getting more because these people are friends with people who probably have a like sense of humor.
Yeah.
And they're going to come in, this Paul Tucker.
You just start getting. I think what will happen is these groups will start becoming friends, and then like when you do the Paul F. Tompkins 300, everyone will show up dressed as Spartans. I would love for that to happen. If anyone's listening out there, get 299 of your friends to dress up as Spartans and go.
I would love some combo of like Spartans and like a nice coat and tie.
So cocktail Spartans.
Yeah, cocktail Spartans. Where are you, cocktail Spartans?
What's the dress? It's cocktail Spartan. Okay, so a tie and then that battle skirt.
Yeah, battle skirt, exactly.
And the helmet, but cuffs.
Yeah, and then
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Chippendale style. Yeah, exactly.
A French cup.
You look like an extra on True Blood.
And also with things like podcasts and social networking, like there's ways to reach new people. Like the Follow Friday on Twitter, I think has probably gained me more fans than any amount of time that I've done in a comedy club. Where you know why? Because people tell me. Because people say, "Hey, I didn't know who you were." Before this, friends of mine recommended you to me on Twitter, and then I've checked out your stuff since then, and I'm a new fan of yours. Like it's like they're saying it, like just that plainly, and it's great.
Do you ever feel the pressure of? Because sometimes I feel like, fuck, I didn't go to school to learn marketing, and now here I am, like television shows that you work on, like live shows that you do, anything, like the onus falls on you, like you ultimately have to get the word out there. Is that irritating to you in any way, or do you feel like, thank God we have the ability to do that?
I think like anything that you feel that you have to do, that is a part of the job part of your dream job. Sometimes you don't feel like it, but it's so easy to put it in perspective and say, here's what I don't feel like doing, is putting a blurb on my website about a date that's coming up.
Right.
Like typing.
Right.
It's 30 seconds of typing is what I don't feel like
clerical
doing.
work.
Or the clerical work, making a joke on Twitter, because it's like it can't all be just, hey, come see me at this place. I also have to give people some fun stuff too, so that if you start following somebody that's all about just business, that's a drag and it's not fun, and you stop paying attention to that person and you get rid of them.
And admittedly, unfortunately, I feel like I fall into that trap sometimes because I get so caught up in like, I've got this blog and this node social network and then shows.
But you also, it's funny how there's different types of Twitterers, and it becomes like, people fall into different categories, and it's very easy to see. So you do the promotion, but you also link to interesting things. And there's a lot of people that I follow that do that too. That they don't maybe make jokes per se, or they don't editorialize or anything, but they will say, hey, check out this story, or check out this weird video or something like that. And that to me is just as valid. I still follow those people, and I still I don't always click on the links that they put up, but I trust them enough that most of the time I do, to see what this interesting story is. There's a guy that calls himself Pour Me Coffee, and like really keeps his identity secret, and he by and large he talks about political stuff, but he's got a posturous blog, and he talks about a lot of fun stuff too. Always really brief, to the point, a lot of links. Really funny, a really funny guy that is just this kind of self-employed pundit, but absolutely worth following.
And there are I think Twitter has been amazing for so many people who, like people like Kelly Oxford or Alison Agosti, or like people who you wouldn't have known before because their faces aren't necessarily on television, but yet they're getting their comedy out there in the world, and it seems to me like it's working. Like as a social networking tool, it's actually working.
It couldn't be simpler, and I think that's what people respond to is that it's very easy to use. It's very easy. It's very easy both to participate in and just to observe. It's very, very simple. And yet still, people get mad if you live tweet a Twilight Zone marathon.
To this day, they still get angry?
No, they have those people have long since unfollowed me.
Oh, yeah?
But I every New Year's Eve, because my wife and I don't do anything for New Year's Eve. We just sit at home. She's asleep by 10. And so I will stay up and watch the Twilight Zone marathon. I've done this like a couple of years running.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah. But see, that's the thing is and then when people get mad, it makes me laugh so hard that they're getting so angry. Because it's people that are drunk and they're just coming home from a party or a bar, and so they see in their Twitter feed it's like all me talking about these Twilight.
You know what,
like
though?
the 60-year-old TV show.
But you have to understand, nerds are all about rules and
I know.
structure, and,
I know.
and it's very OCD. And if you violate that system even an inch, it's just like, oh, what are you? Like
but
the world crumbles.
These don't even seem like nerds to me. They seem like dumb club people. You know what I mean? That have been out like getting hammered and being gross.
I love it because I like to guess what episode Paul's watching.
Yeah.
The Talking Tina episode.
Yeah, exactly.
I always thought I had an old bit about this, but I never do it in clubs because most people don't know what I'm talking about. But I had this old bit about how I thought Twilight Zone should be called "Nice Try, Asshole" because it's always someone trying to do a thing. But in the end, nice try, asshole. Yeah.
You also had a joke about the Twilight Zone ride at California Adventure.
I did?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No.
Oh, man. That was like back in the M-Bar days. I remember.
Holy shit. Yeah. I don't know what...
Well, how did it go, Joe?
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I didn't do it. It's something about the...
It went a little something like this.
Since you asked.
Why are you dancing, Jonah? There's no reason to be dancing.
It was a long time ago, so I'm going to have a few drinks before I get into the
Maybe I'll have to have a few just to remember it. But they get really upset if you violate Twitter laws.
I had on my an iTunes review another thing that cracks me up because I started a podcast recently, and
that I definitely want to talk about.
Sure,
the Pod F Tompcast.
Yes, and I went to the iTunes reviews, and I never read reviews because it hurts my feelings.
Right.
But then I realized,
is that because you're a human being?
Yeah.
So you're not made of some kind of inorganic material.
Don't put yourself out there.
For some reason, when people are trying to be as mean as possible, they really succeed. But then I realized, wait a minute. This thing is for free.
Yeah.
So I don't have to. I don't take anything to heart at all. It's like it's just that simple. Like if I put a CD out and people say, "Oh, wasn't that funny?" or this, or that, or like, "I like the other one better." It's like, "Oh, that sucks," because I'm wanting people to buy this. But when I put the podcast out and I realized this is for free, I'm doing this. It could be whatever I want. The negative reviews became so funny to me, and the people looked so stupid.
Right.
It was hilarious. Like. There was one where it was a rules thing because the conceit, the very light conceit of my podcast is it's nighttime on the internet. Now, I know that people can listen to this any time of day. I know most people are going to be listening to it during the daytime, probably working out or doing household chores or whatever.
Paul, can I take a guess at what some of the people might be? It's not nighttime.
Yeah.
What I'm listening to.
It was one person who gave me, I think, 2 stars, and the whole review was major podcast rule violation. Like they actually said it. Let me see if I can find
You
it.
didn't wait. So you didn't look at your podcast statutes? Was that the
Well, they
problem?
should publish the rules.
Somewhere.
So I don't know if I have to go downtown.
Is
to
it
the
some
county
kind of a
courthouse.
wiki, or is it a
You're supposed to register with Ricky Gervais.
on Wikipedia?
But yeah, it was about what time of day it was. Like you can't say what time of day it is.
Yeah.
Oh, can I say it's nighttime on the internet?
No.
What rule is that says I can't say
But
that?
it's literally somewhere always nighttime on the internet.
Yeah, it's true.
So some guy wrote me the other day, and he was like, on Twitter, he said, the audio on your podcast is shit. What, you can't afford real equipment? And so, of course, I clicked on his profile. I was laughing, and I clicked on his profile, and he had 1 follower. And I literally typed in, but I didn't send it, like, and now I see where all your followers went. Like, there's no, you so want to retaliate, you say something back, and you're like, this poor guy, he's got 1 follower. He's not gonna fucking...
Poor guy.
I feel bad for
Some
him.
of our reviews on iTunes are hilarious.
What's amazing is, and especially on Twitter, is you'll see similarities in tweets. You'll see like a similar kind of negative tweet, and just from a statistician standpoint, if you go through, you see striking similarities between the way people look and the types of responses.
Yes. I have a lot. That
you get.
On TweetDeck, I have a column that is just Nerdist Podcast.
Yeah.
So every time I should really take it off. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I should just every time someone says something, and you'll see in groups people are saying that they like a particular thing, or
There are some weird. I mean,
that
like
you should have a certain person.
Twitter as a data tool is fascinating for that reason alone, because you see that sort of like freakonomics, like, oh, these seemingly unrelated data points are actually all have some kind of unifying thing, and they look the same. They have the same haircuts. They follow the same 9 UFC fighters. There's probably a Tap Out logo somewhere on their avatar. Like, it's so fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
But I want to talk about the Pod F Tomcast because you've been talking about doing it for a while, and
For a while.
well, because
been a while.
because it was
yeah.
because rather than just like here we were like hey, let's just go start talking and then that's it. But yours is actually going to be you want to do a produced show,
Yeah.
and so that just takes a little more work.
Makes the rest of us look bad.
Well, but I foolishly announced that I was going to do it right before I had just moved back from New York, and we were still settling into our new house, and we were about to get married. And it was a terrible time to embark on some new time-consuming venture that there was just no way that was going to happen. And I put a date on it in 1 month or something, and then I realized no, there's no way I'm ever going to. I have to figure it out first. It's not like. No. I have it all mapped out, storyboarded, and I just have to walk in.
You didn't write a check to yourself for $10 million, dated for 10 years into the future.
And I put it in Jim Carrey's dad's contract.
Come on. But the Pod F Tomcast. First of all, the graphic for your podcast is stunning. The little iPod face with the 8-bit mustache.
Right.
That is gorgeous.
That was Mike Mitchell, very talented artist, the guy who did the I'm with Coco poster.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how many episodes have you done? What's your plan with the show? How was the first episode received?
I've done 1 so far. The first episode was received very, very well. The response was overwhelmingly positive. I read a few negative iTunes reviews, but it's a form where you really can. I love podcasts so much, and I listen to a ton of podcasts, and it's a form where you can do whatever you want. It can be whatever you want it to be, and the way you decide to listen to or not listen to a podcast is whether or not you like it, and it's just that simple. And I kind of like that. I think I become less. I become completely non-judgmental of them. It really is whether I like it or I don't like it. And people like to break it down in reviews I like this part, I didn't like that part. And to me, it's if I like most of it, I will listen to it.
Right.
It's weird that I don't even think anymore about this segment I can skip over or whatever. You know what I mean?
You turned me on to In Our Time with Melvin Bragg, which was which it became too overwhelming because there's so many. There's a backlog. Do you guys know this in our time with Melvin Bragg?
It's fantastic. It's this British guy from the BBC who sits around with 3 or 4 people who are experts on whatever topic they're going to discuss.
The brainiest scholars
it's
you could
crazy.
ever.
Like
Cambridge, Oxford.
Yeah, they'll talk about specific, a specific thing that happened in history.
Like the Norman invasion.
Yeah. Or they'll talk about the concept of friendship. How old is friendship? What evolutionary purpose does it serve?
It's literally anything that has happened within the span of humanity, they will cover.
Yeah.
That's great.
And they'll talk about it for an hour, and everyone is brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating.
And this guy, Melvin Bragg, that how he keeps everybody on topic and on track, because sometimes he'll say, well, hold on a second. You're getting away from the question that I asked.
He fucking know
which is,
everything?
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. But the one drawback to that podcast is you really have to pay attention to it.
You can't drift off. It's
Yes.
I suffered from listening to it while driving. I was like, whoa,
No.
absolutely not. What happened? No. Where'd the Mongols come from? They're talking about Mongols all of a sudden. I don't know what happened.
I would listen to that podcast and I'm so backed up, like a year's worth backed up.
Oh, yeah.
Where I would say, all right, today I'm gonna iron a bunch of shirts. So that's perfect, because that is a repetitive activity that I don't have to think about, so I can be listening to that completely and doing nothing but that. I'm gonna iron like 15 shirts. That'll be 45 minutes, and I will have listened to one episode of that podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love the form, and it's very freeing to be able to say, I'm just going to put everything out there. I'm just going to do. Here's all the things that I like. I'm going to put them all into this. I took care to structure it a certain way, where I have a little bit. I have like a sketch that I have written specifically for the podcast.
We were walking here. We were talking about the Andrew Lloyd Webber Ice-T sketch.
And that came out of characters that I had done. When Scott Aukerman started doing his Comedy Death Ray Radio podcast, I started doing characters on that show that were things that I had done on Best Week Ever. That I've never been a character person, but because of the nature of that show, I would imitate these famous people for different bits that we would do on the show. And so Scott said, yeah, if you ever want to come on, as yourself or as a character. And when he said that, it was just as simple as him saying that. I was like, maybe I do want to do a character. Like, that would be fun. And I had been like fresh off that experience and realizing, I don't know when I'm ever going to get a chance to do these voices again, And so then I started calling in regularly as Ice-T and Andrew Lloyd Webber and the Cake Boss and, stuff like that. All stuff that I'd done on Best Week Ever. And so when I started doing the podcast, I realized I want to do that. I definitely want to include that. And then, I do this live show at Largo at the Coronet in West Hollywood every month. I record all those shows. I definitely want to use excerpts from that show, so people that live outside of Los Angeles can hear. This is the kind of thing that I'm doing here. And then I realized I wanted to have a conversational element to it, because a lot of the podcasts that I enjoy are conversational, and oh, hold on a second.
What?
Well, I have something to say about the Nerdist podcast.
Okay,
it is coming very soon.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'm gonna do like the sketch I'll put early on because it's short. The excerpt from the show, I'll kind of stick that in the middle because it's a different thing. It's a good place to put it because it's a live element in the midst of this recorded thing. And then the conversation I'll leave last because I know that's going to take people time to get into it. That I start by it's a conversation between me and my friend Jen Kirkman, who's a hilarious comedian that I've known for years, and we're really close friends. And so she's a character, and I thought I enjoy listening to her take on things so much. I'm going to start at the beginning with how we became friends, and then from here, and like even just doing that, realizing like, okay, next time it'll be a more focused conversation. We'll pick a thing to talk about, and then it'll be like no longer than 10 minutes.
Okay.
You know? So it's like knowing that. And one of the things that I kept in mind as I was doing it was, this thing is going to evolve. I don't know what it's going to become, but here's where I'm starting.
That is the best.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting.
Because like when people say, because I'm sure they ask us all the time, like, how do I start doing comedy? You're like,
How do I start doing comedy?
You've gotten that question before, right?
Of course, yes.
And it's like, it doesn't have to be done when you start. You just have to start it.
Yeah.
Because it's no matter how well you try to plan it. And
Yeah.
I think when we started this show, that was the same thinking of like, oh, I don't have to have a perfectly formed show. We can just start it. No matter what we plan, it's going to change over time anyway. I don't know if it has, but
we started it. We're like, we'll figure it out as we go along. And it's
I think we're still doing that. Yeah, I think we're still figuring out. The only thing that's changed is the guests.
Yeah, that's the only thing. It's like we start talking and then go, oh shit, and then
But you got with a conversation based podcast, I think there's only so much evolution that needs to be done. You know what I mean? Because the evolution that happens is you're getting better at doing the thing that you're doing. You know what I mean? You get less. It's very self-conscious the first time you turn on the mics and you're going to sit around. You're very conscious of this is being recorded.
Right.
And so gradually that self-consciousness falls away and you get better conversation because the self-consciousness leaves. And I think that's the evolution that happens in a podcast like this.
So, Paul, what is your favorite?
I think we've gotten. I think we've gotten better at not stepping over each other.
Yeah.
Or
There you go.
Now, I have to make a confession.
What happened?
I did not initially listen to the Nerdist podcast. And let me tell you why.
Let him finish. No, it hurts. Let him finish, Chris.
I very dumbly assumed that it was going to be some sort of technical thing. I really did think.
No, but that's not a bad assumption. It's called the Nerdist Podcast.
I just on iTunes sometimes.
I went solely by the name, and I thought, oh, he's gonna talk about tech stuff, and I won't understand that.
This week, SD cards are up 16 gigabytes.
To be fair, I did not think it was going to be as dry as all that. But
Cyberduck or Fetch, you guys. FTP clients in the house.
Already lost.
Yeah. No, I know that name is kind of misleading from the if you think of it from that way. So yes, I understand.
I am late to the game.
That's okay. That's okay.
If I had thought about it, I probably would have understood. No, that's a sort of that's just the name of the thing.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily but I was operating under the assumption that I knew what the term nerdist was all about. I know what that is.
No, that's
everyone knows that word. That's I guess because of the blog, because of the blog, I thought, oh, this is the audio version of the Nerdist blog,
which is one of the reasons why I've tried to expand the blog out. And so the idea is more now we're at a partner, everyone nerds out over something. Everyone's obsessive over something. And so, yes. I think there's an undertone to this podcast that's about people's processes and things that they're obsessing over. And
I've since listened to about half a dozen
that's cool.
hours. Yeah. And I enjoyed it a great deal.
Well, thank you. Squeeze!
I have one criticism.
Please.
That John Hamm, he talks too quiet. Choke up on that mic, John.
It's so sexy if you speak up.
Seriously. Yeah, loud is not sexy.
He's used to lavalier microphones. That's what that guy's used to.
He needs a lav mic or a boom mic hanging over him.
That's right.
A fuzzy boom mic.
He doesn't have the marriage chip. I read that.
No.
On Huffington Post.
No.
A what? A marriage chip?
The marriage chip. John Hamm doesn't have it.
To get married.
I saw that on the Huffington Post, and then I saw 14 other blogs pick that up.
All you keep saying is the Huffington Post. You're not telling me what that thing is.
Huffington Post.
HuffPo?
What's a marriage chip?
Apparently, it's what people have that makes them get married.
They want to get married.
It's what you have, Paul.
Marriage chip.
Get married.
Oh, he's sort of being fun.
Yes.
Would you install that with an optical drive?
Yes, he and his lady, Jennifer Westfeld, I think both of them lack that software.
They've been together a while.
Or hardware, as the case may be. They've been together a while, and she made a movie called Iron Abbey, which was very enjoyable, indie film, that was kind of all about how marriage is not the greatest thing. And it was like, okay, I think I see this is your philosophy. I saw that movie before. I think I had met John in passing a couple times as part of the larger comedy group in LA. You know, and through John Schrader, the comedy
Tall John.
writer. Tall John.
And then we did a match game with Jimmy Pardo with Ham.
Yes,
and
yes.
I hadn't really talked to him that much before we did the match game, and he was very funny.
Very funny. He's a really funny guy. And that was my first time meeting him since Mad Men had started. And the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, I just downloaded your CD. It was really funny." And I was very excited that this
Was
guy
this
on
impersonal?
This great show. This was impersonal, yes. But he's a super cool guy, and is pretty much always up for fun stuff. Like he happened to be in New York. I think he was doing 30 Rock in New York when I was hosting Best Week Ever, and I emailed him and say, "Hey, if you're around, you got some time, do you want to come down and just do something on the show?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I very quickly just wrote up this runner, just like this absurd thing, had nothing to do with anything. It was not commenting on pop culture at all. It felt like it was a thing that we could use anytime. And he came down, and like within a half hour, I think it took longer to like put him through makeup than it did to actually shoot the thing. And he did it and was great and left. And it was really cool, It was really
this
really
for
cool.
Best Week Ever?
Yeah, and he was hilarious, And it was just him being such a sport about that and being up for it. Like I think that he has a great attitude about work because he slaved away in relative obscurity, for such a long time. Was like a guy who worked for a while but knew what it was like to not be working, and then to be on a good thing and have people say good things about it and really have work that he could sink his teeth into and have people acknowledge that he was good at what he was doing. I can tell without him saying this, he's like one of those guys that like, this is all gravy now, you know? Like I am very fortunate to have all these things. He knows that this does not happen to everybody all the time.
Well, he definitely does not have that attitude. Like if people on a successful show, if you kind of talk about their work, they get a little like, yeah, I don't want to talk about work. Like he's very much open about stuff, and and he's just a comedy.
He likes what he does, and he doesn't take it for granted.
I just love that for the longest time, like you see older pictures of him, he just looks like a dude.
He's shaggy
fucking
hair.
slick. Slick that hair back, and it's like, oh my. It's like taking the glasses off the nerd girl, shaking her hair loose. She's beautiful. So do you? How was your experience on Best Week Ever? Because I know you uprooted your life and moved to New York.
Yeah.
And
I loved doing that show. It was at a terrible time. In terms of the economy, where it was starting to affect show business for the first time in recorded history. Like the Great Depression didn't affect show business. You know what I mean? Like they made more movies,
right?
But for the first time, networks started to get scared. Like, man, we're not spending money on things like advertising, what is essentially a brand new show.
Right.
Because I had done Best Week Ever as a panelist. In its old format, where it was a bunch of talking heads. They did that for 4.5 years. Then they made this dramatic switch to a hosted format, but they didn't tell anybody that they were going to do that. So one week, it was the show that the viewers of Best Week Ever enjoyed. And then the next week, hey, it's only that one guy now.
It is a classic television move, though, where they're so, you can see networks in panic mode where they're like, put this on. Did you tell anyone about it? Doesn't matter. Just fucking get it on. Oh, it didn't rain after a week. Get it off.
You know
Put something else on.
This didn't even
Flash colors.
But what's so funny was this never felt like panic mode. It felt like, you know what? This show's been going on for a while. Like, we could try something different, or we could cancel it. Let's try something different. And so they tried it different. Like that whole process seemed very calm, and it did not seem like it was born out of panic whatsoever. It just seemed like, this thing has been happening for a while. Other shows are rating better, and especially on VH1, which is mostly reruns. Like they have 5 shows that they just rerun incessantly. So it really was like, we're saving so much money with this reality programming where disgusting people try to have sex with each other. We really are saving a lot of money I guess we have enough cash that we could do something different with Best Week
Disgusting
Ever.
ex-celebrities trying to have sex with each
We have
other.
one show that's
The
not about.
spin is-
Yeah. We have one show that's not about monsters trying to procreate. What say we do something different with that show and see what happens? And then the experiment was not a success because we didn't automatically have millions of viewers come out of nowhere that just discover our show by accident and become in love with it.
There's some type of osmosis.
Yeah. So they were like, we gave it a shot.
No, you didn't.
At the end,
You didn't really give it a shot.
You didn't really give it a shot. We gave it a shot at letting them give it a shot.
No, keeping it on a couple seasons is giving it a shot.
Yeah, but I had such a good time working on that show. It was so much fun to be writing, producing, and performing comedy on television every single week. Was a blast. I loved the people that I worked with. It was a real. I loved the challenge of it, of making it as good as it possibly could be. And for as many people that think they knew what we were doing on that show and could be kind of dismissive of it, we endeavored every episode to not just be sarcastic, but to actually make some commentary wherever we could. There was plenty of silliness on that show, absolutely. But my thing always was, let's go a little bit deeper with this. I know it's silly pop culture, and I know we're making fun of stuff that by and large doesn't matter. So let's try and find the thing that does matter in this, rather than just Britney Spears still dumb. Like let's try and make a commentary. Just slip in a little commentary in a funny way. Well, that's society as a whole.
And you can't have that Britney's dumb approach like I do Chelsea Lately all the time, and you can't go on and tell the audience, hey, this thing that I've gone out of my way to comment on isn't worthwhile. Like, because you're basically telling the audience, you're stupid for caring about this. I'm stupid for being here. This whole thing is...
And people have made that mistake, have gone on that show or shows like that, and made the mistake of saying, who cares about this?
Yeah, and then
it's
people
like,
well,
that's kind of what our whole premise is.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
So you gotta kind of have fun with it.
Yeah.
You gotta have fun with it. But and there also you had a famous falling out with Weird Al Yankovic on the. I was so happy when you guys finally mended the bridge. Do you know this story?
It sounds familiar.
It's a wonderful story
so
that I hope you don't
ridiculous.
mind.
It's like a mystery.
No.
Or-
It is now in the current hour of stand up I'm doing is all about work. So it's all different jobs that I've had on screen and off. There's. When Best Week Ever was in the multi-panelist format, we shared studio space. We shared a wall. Studio space is not correct because we were in an office building. We shared a wall with the I Love the series of programming. I love the 80s, I love the 90s. And so the sound would bleed through. So whoever got there first, whichever show got there first that day, had the right to complain about the other show. That was dumb, but it was.
You guys weren't so much productions as tenants.
Yes, exactly, and that was the only system that we had of dealing with this ridiculous situation. So one day, one of our crew goes over to tell I Love the 90s to keep it down, and the guy comes back and he's kind of giggling. He goes, "Weird Al Yankovic's over there," and I said, "Oh, next time there's noise, let me go over there." And I'll make a bit out of complaining, and it'll be funny. So I go next door, and I make this huge display over the noise that Weird Al is making, and I'm calling him weird. I'm like, "Come on, weird!" And I'm being as over the top as possible. And he's being so apologetic, and I'm like, he doesn't get that I'm kidding around. So I go crazier and crazier, and he still never quite gets it. And then I realize, I have never met this guy before. I only thought that I had. I've never met him. And so I walk out. I'm kind of embarrassed, and I walk out of there. And I, for years and years, I was like, this guy yelled at this guy, and he has no idea. And I'm thinking, he must know that I was kidding around. And so I finally told you the story, and I said, could you find out if he knew I was kidding, right? And Chris wrote back to me and said, no, he thought you were serious. At this point, years had gone by.
Oh man, I felt so bad because he's the sweetest guy ever.
Oh, the nicest guy in the world.
And so he really did. And so I felt like I was doing some very effective patchwork, and I wrote back and go, Paul, it's all okay with weird. It's everything's gonna be all right.
So that culminated in I was doing my Largo show, and it was an anniversary show. It was the 8th anniversary of doing this show. And so since then, I had talked to Weird Al a bunch of times, and we had worked together on different things, and so I told that story in my opening monologue, and then as a big surprise, I brought Weird Al out, and we hugged in front of everybody and put the feud behind us. But yeah, that is my favorite memory of Best Week Ever, was that ridiculous time when I thought I had met Weird Al. I had not.
In fact, you had just verbally assaulted him in a way that he.
I was meeting him now for sure.
So it wasn't. So like you said, you've been doing comedy for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until Impersonal, which is only a couple years old, right? Was it 07?
2007,
yeah. That you actually just sort of compiled. I felt like that was your CD of, you know what? These are a bunch of old bits that like kind of the A stuff from over the years. I'm just gonna put it on one thing and just kind of get it out there so that it's actually out there.
Yeah, like this is stuff I don't do anymore, and in fact, it's
bits of people request.
Yes, absolutely. But in fact, it's a style that I don't really do. Like my style has evolved somewhat.
Oh, please talk about that for a sec. Like, how have you seen? From the beginning, Paul Tompkins, comedian, Philadelphia, in the late '80s, early '90s. How was your style different? How'd you evolve? Like, what's that?
When I first started, I think I know that I thought I was a lot better than I actually was. But I think that you need that a little bit to get started. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
Right.
If you knew exactly the level of quality that you were putting out, you would say, "Well, I shouldn't be doing this thing. I should go home."
It's only in hindsight where you're like, I said that out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
To people?
But it's it's the best you can do at the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like I only really got good at stand-up within the last handful of years. I think that I had done it for 8 years in Philadelphia, then moved to Los Angeles, and then when I moved here, I started getting into sketch and that sort of performing and a lot more acting stuff. And so I would do stand-up, but I wouldn't really do gigs out of town much. I would pretty much just do it in Los Angeles. And I wasn't really paying attention to it, It was sort of like I knew that I needed to come up with stuff to do. Like if I was doing the weekly show at Largo, I would do that once or twice a month. And the sort of rule was that you had to have new stuff when you went on. And so I would write new stuff for that. But I would kind of find it on stage, and I didn't really. I sort of took stand-up for granted. I didn't spend as much time on it as I could have.
Did you write stuff down, or did you just kind of go up with some premises?
I would have
in your
bullet
head?
points, and I would kind of figure it out up there, which I still kind of do. But if I have a turn of phrase that I really like, I will definitely make sure to say that word for word. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I go up with a skeleton, and put the meat on stage in front of people. It was around the time of doing that CD that I realized, wow, I've started paying attention to this more. I started taking more road gigs because when I wouldn't have a regular TV gig of any kind, I would go hit the clubs, and then that started making me a better comedian, was headlining, was that, well, you have to give these people a show, and it's not like radio style. You can't just mark time. Like you have to really perform because people have paid a lot of money.
And you do get a little spoiled in LA because if you perform a lot, people know who you are, it's all gone when you go up on stage. You're like, oh, it's Paul. I know who he is. I know what he's about.
Yeah. There will be like a handful of people that maybe knew who I was, but there was a lot of people that had no idea, and so I really had to perform and trying to do that on my terms, like the way I wanted to be funny, to a group of disinterested people, was a real challenge. And what made it, I think, what helped me a lot was being in those situations and projecting to people that were not into what I was doing. It's all going to be okay, you guys. It's all going to be okay. I know you're not into it. Just hang in there. by the end of this, I will have turned you around. And I had to believe that myself, at the very least, I had to project that to the audience. Like, I know you're not on board with this, but you will be, and it's going to be fine. And that actually worked, And then there came a time when I got tired of doing that, right. Where I didn't want to have to do that anymore. But because with the clubs, you're up against so much stuff that gets in the way of the show. And the analogy I like to use that I think is a really apt analogy is that you are the movie. And the way the club makes money is from the popcorn. That's their primary source of income. It is not the guy that it could be any idiot up there on stage.
Right.
It is really like they are in the restaurant business. You're the only one who's in the comedy business. So you have to understand that you're doing your comedy in somebody's restaurant.
Well, that's why it's refreshing to find a spot like Laughing Skull or Acme in Minneapolis or like a club where you feel like, they actually care about the comedians.
Yeah.
And not just, get up there and keep, stay up there until we drop the check.
Yeah.
And
But even those places, they still have to deal with.
Of course.
They got to sell drinks.
Of course.
They got to sell drinks. And they can care about comedy all they like. But at the end of the day, if they want to stay in the black, they have to sell booze while you're up there in the comedy business.
Right.
Yeah. They're still in the booze business. So, it's nice when one business admires another business. That's nice. That they're not actively trying to destroy you, but they're it's not.
It's funny. We just basically keep people focused so they can just keep pouring beer in their gullets.
Yes,
you're keeping them in one spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Please don't leave.
And hopefully,
please stay and drink. Please stay and drink.
And hopefully they'll enjoy it, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. You totally forget. Like when people say, whenever I see a comment on the internet about a TV show, it's like, that show totally sold out. Like, it's sold out from the beginning because it's television, and television is meant to keep you watching for ads.
Yeah.
Automatically.
Yeah. If you think they sold out, it's because they're trying to stay on the air. They're trying to keep their jobs and the jobs of who knows how many people that work on a television
But
show.
you have a writing skill with your stand-up that is incredible to me, and it's one that I always wanted to be able to do. I'm just not great at it. But you, within the body of a bit, you can take a tangent onto some minor detail that almost seems accidental, and then all of a sudden you go into that, and that becomes the focus of the bit, and then some tangent on that takes you further into the bit. It's like levels in Inception, man. It's like you're in limbo. Wow. But that is a phenomenal way to write, and it's not something it's just not something I see anyone else do.
Well, thank you. A lot of that I must admit is by accident. I feed a lot off of the energy of the crowd, and I like to allow for the possibility of improvisation. So I might write like one tangent in there, but where it goes depends on how people respond to the tangent. You know what I mean? Like if they laugh at this weird thing that I threw in there, that's ultimately a thing that I think is funny, that I don't necessarily know if the audience is going to think is funny, but I hope they think is funny. Like when you're writing stand up, the idea is, this is so funny in my head, I am reasonably sure that other people will find this funny too. I have to translate it from the language in my head, where it's literally just a thought, it's just a flash that made me laugh. I have to translate that into human speech so that other people who don't speak the language that's in my head will understand. And then, okay, I know that if I phrase it this way, this is how I say funny things. People will laugh at that, I'm pretty sure. Then there's other stuff where it's like, I think this is funny, but I don't know if anybody else would ever think this is funny. I'm compelled to throw it out there just to see if anybody laughs at that. That's the little tangents. And then if people do laugh at that, then my instinct is always, let's see how far I can push it. Let's see what I can get out of this.
That's so amazing you say that, because I did that. I did a Wired article a couple months ago about the stand-up writing process, and I talked to you and Zach Galifianakis and a handful of people, Bob Newhart, and Newhart's whole thing was, he has and it's just funny to hear this from Bob Newhart. He has a series of bailout points in his bits. Yes. And he's like, if the bit's working up to that bailout point, and then I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Then if it stops working, I get out at the next bailout point.
Yeah.
And then I go home and rework it. So it's funny.
That's really what it comes down to, right?
He's built in all these trapdoors
Yeah.
so that he can just fucking get out if he needs to.
That is, I think that's a very elegant way to express it. It's pretty much you keep talking until they stop laughing, and then the next time you talk about the same stuff, you cut out the part where they stop laughing.
It's a very simple.
It's like, I know they will laugh up to this point. Any further than that, they will not laugh.
I remember actually at that Helium show in Philly all those years ago, you did like a 10-minute chunk on like the Talking Ape.
Oh boy, that one. I tried with that one for a while.
I thought it was like the area I was with was like dying, and then like but at the end of it, like because it went on for like 10 minutes or so, and then like at the very end,
I think
like,
it just felt like 10 minutes.
no, I thought it was great, but then like at the end of it, you were just like, and that one was for me. Back to you. Back to you.
That was a bit that, every once in a while. Well, thank you. It remains a great premise. Every once in a while, there's a thing like that where you think, "Oh my god, that's one of those things that was so funny in my head." The idea of if we discovered an actual talking gorilla someplace could speak perfect English, and then we bring it to America and put it on television and everything, so everybody can see this miracle. This ape can speak English. How long would it take for it to become boring? Where after a while, you're like, no, I've seen it. I've seen it. Are you gonna watch The Talking Ape? No, I've seen him. I feel like I've heard all he had to say.
I will tell you exactly how long it would take. In our culture now, it would take about 3 minutes for the YouTube video, and then it would be a cat who's dressed like one of the Sex and the City girls.
But talking about like taking it to the other, like he goes off on a tangent and then like starts talking about then the ape would kind of like as a kind of a washed up celebrity like would have its own show.
Oh, well, the idea is that...
It sounds like you're describing The Situation from Jersey Shore.
Oh, God. Well, you might be right.
Like, afterwards, when people don't care anymore, they're going to be like, hey, come on!
Yeah, exactly.
We gotta lock him in a room for a week and see if all that hair grows back. It's like, you were a gorilla.
Okay.
That's going to be the
Guys
twist at the
got
end of the
me.
season.
It's going to be particularly sad when he doesn't have abs anymore. He's going to be the situation.
It's going to be another kind of situation.
It's going to be a sad situation.
Yeah.
Well, Paul F. Tompkins, we're at the end of our hour.
Oh, my God.
It just flew by.
It really did.
But I am so thrilled that you came on, and hopefully, you'll come back on again some other time.
Anytime.
But people should definitely listen to Pod F Topcast, which is on iTunes. Your website is paulftompkins.com, and that is Tompkins with a Tompkins. There's no H.
God love you.
And then your Twitter account is PF Tompkins.
That is correct. All of these things are true.
All these things are true. And then also on Facebook, people should join the Paul F. Tompkins 300s.
Yeah, if you see if there's one in your town, I'd love to come see you.
Well, I should. By the time this goes up, I'll be in beta testing for this social network called the Node, which is all about nerd sourcing, which is basically just crowdsourcing with nerds. And so a lot of it will be stuff like, hey, let's get 300 people together and go see Paul, or let's make a thing, and let's have a giant group nerd picnic, and it's just all
this sounds
about,
incredible.
It should be. Hopefully, it'll be fun.
I like that picnic idea too.
You want to have a big picnic?
Sure, I do with nerds.
Let's go have a nerd picnic.
All of your glasses are setting fire to the grass.
I call this dish Bits and Bites. BITES.
That's just alphabets.
You got me. It's alphabets, but it's ones and zeros for every letter. Alphanumeric bits.
That's right.
Bits. Binary bits.
Binary bits.
The end.
Sorry.
The end.
I remember.
How do you come after binary bits?
Thank you for listening to the Nerdist Podcast number 33 with Paul F. Tompkins.
And I'm already sick of doing that character voice. Hey guys, couple things before I let go of your ears. First of all, I will be performing stand-up comedy at Helium Comedy Club in Philadelphia, hometown of one Paul F. Tompkins, who you might know as recently as seconds ago. That'll be Wednesday through Saturday, August 25th through 28th. So come on out to that, say hi after the show, and I'll be like, hi, and you'll be like, hi, and I'll be like, see, we talked about this, and you'll be like, stuff comes true, or whatever. Also, if you're interested in getting information about the social network experiment, The Node, then send us an email at node@nerdist.com. All right, thanks for listening to the Nerdist Podcast number 33. Have a superlative week.
Now leaving Nerdist.com.